So I figured this would be a natural next step in my ranking music video series that I guess is becoming my thing now. But since Olivia Rodrigo only has 2 albums, I thought it would be more fun and interesting to turn this into more of like a compare and contrast between these 2 albums and give you some analysis and further thoughts alongside my ranking and just kind of opinions on each song. Olivia has been kind of taking over the music industry these last few years, and if you look at these 2 albums she's released so far, it's pretty clear why. These albums are breathtaking, and there's really no understating just how much of an impact Olivia has had in such little time, due in large part to how well done and intricately crafted these 2 albums really are. She's perfected this style of songwriting and album construction, and she takes inspiration from other popular artists while also being very uniquely her own. Like, I know I'm overdramatic with half the shit I say, but I feel like she's done something rare by having her first 2 albums be this good. Like, oh my goodness. So more than just rank all of her songs, I wanted to spend some time talking about these albums more in depth and talk about why so many people, including myself, have found them to be so profound and successful. Both albums utilize very similar structures and techniques to get at different themes while still having that unique Olivia touch, and there's a clear evolution both message-wise and sonically from Sour to Guts that makes each era its own and really interesting in my opinion. Both eras are very, very strong in their own ways. Also, this gives me an excuse to do a full ranking without having to talk about songs from High School Musical, the musical, the series, which I just kind of wanted to leave that out. So yeah, so this is how it's going to work. I'm going to go song by song through both albums simultaneously and kind of compare them. So like track 1 on each album, we'll talk about it, we'll debrief it, and then go to track 2 until the end of each album. And I'm going to talk both from an analytical perspective of like my thoughts on the song, where it stands in the album, you know, what is it doing for her, along with my pick between those 2 songs, you know, which of the 2 would I rank higher, like a choose your fighter kind of situation. And then at the very end, I'll give you the full ranking of all 28 of her songs from Sour and Guts. This is still like any other ranking video I've done. It's just that instead of talking about each song as they come up in the ranking, I'm going to talk about each song as you scroll through them in their respective albums, really for the sake of showing comparisons between Sour and Guts and the similarities and differences between these 2 albums that I think are very interesting. But it's still a ranking video, all the same things apply, these are all just my opinions, don't take it too seriously, we're just here to talk about Olivia and her amazing, amazing music. Also, a little quick side note about the channel, just wanted to say a couple things. First of all, thank you so much for all the support on my Ranking Every Taylor Swift Song video. I was very shocked with how well that video is doing, at least to me, okay? It's gotten me to 500 subscribers now, which is absolutely crazy. I'm trying to get to 1,000, so if y'all want to help me out with that, that would be lovely. But yeah, I just wanted to say thank you. I know it's kind of cheesy, but like, genuinely, this has been a lot of fun. I mean, I never really expected this channel to go anywhere, but now I really do want to keep making videos and keep trying to build this channel. And I will say these ranking videos are a lot of fun to make, but they do take a while, and as summer is coming to an end, it might be more difficult for me to be putting out these kind of long form videos. So let me know what other kinds of stuff you might want to see. I mean, I just like talking about music and my opinions and analyses and all that good stuff. So let me know what other artists or albums you'd want to see me talk about, and I can do like shorter form videos on that kind of stuff. Either way, there's only so many artists I can do full discography rankings of, and we are running out. But yeah, that's the side note. Thank you for all the support. I love y'all. Back to the video. So without further ado, let's jump right in. This is Sour versus Guts, an analysis plus ranking. First up, we have track number 1, Brutal versus All American Bitch. I do want to spend some time on track 1 because this is where we get a lot of setup about the rest of the album, the larger themes and tones that you can expect. I think Olivia has especially cracked the code on this. I mean, as you'll see, as I'll keep emphasizing, these 2 albums are very similarly constructed, and she has really mastered creating a story with her albums from each song to the next. So as the openers, these tracks are really doing a lot of work, and as you may notice, both tracks are very similarly produced, with these more mellow, low-energy verses contrasting with very loud, grungy choruses that really hammer at the core ideas of their respective albums.
And I wish people liked me more. All I did was try my best. Forgive and I forget.
Brutal is all about fear, insecurity, and jealousy, which are pretty much the key themes of Sour. The verses lay out a bunch of things Olivia hates about herself, her faults, comparing herself to other people her age, feeling like she's missing out on what everyone says are the best years of her life, but she just isn't getting it. And the chorus really drives in that idea that she essentially feels like she's living her life wrong. This song and ultimately this whole album is about being surrounded by expectations that are impossible to meet and constantly comparing yourself to other people. And this is really what the entire breakup story of the album boils down to as well. At the end of the day, Sour is a breakup album, but a lot of that story is laced with this feeling that Olivia is not good enough. And the reason this relationship didn't work out is because she's not good enough. She's not like all those other prettier, happier, better girls. All American Bitch, interestingly, is about similar things, but it takes an entirely different approach. The verses are the exact opposite. Instead of listing things Olivia hates about herself, Olivia now lists things that make her the ideal young woman. She's tough and amicable, she holds her emotions in. I mean, just read the lyrics, it's all there. The chorus hammers in a few of these ideas in particular, which I think are important to the rest of the album. Forgiveness, aging, and ultimately, perfection. The key thing about this song is that it's all laced with sarcasm, which is made most apparent in the bridge and the outro, where she starts screaming and releasing the anger she's bottled up by having to be this all-American ideal woman everyone loves, when in reality, no one is this perfect. This is why I love what Olivia has done with the transition from Sour to Guts. It's still about jealousy and comparison and expectations, but now she's playing the perfect all-American girl that others compared themselves to. And much of this album centers around how Olivia feels like as she has transitioned out of Sour, as she has grown from a teenager into a young adult, she is crumbling under these perfectionist expectations that she is held to and that she holds herself to as well. So that was kind of the analysis side of what I wanted to talk about, my thoughts on the songs. Regarding my pick of which I like better, both of these tracks are great, but actually when Guts came out, I claimed All American Bitch to be my favorite on the album, and for me that's still the case. I mean, that's kind of spoilers for the ranking at the end, but I'll just say it now. This is my favorite on Guts. This song is incredible, the way it meshes the guitar and the verses with the loud grunge of the choruses. It's similar to Brutal, but I think with All American Bitch, there's just kind of a little more energy to it that I like, and it really just lets loose in the bridge and outro. It's just so good. And now we're going to move right along to track number 2. We have Traitor versus Bad Idea, right? And at first glance, this pairing makes absolutely no sense, but I think these are both fitting to the overall idea of track 2 for these albums, while showing some divergence in their themes and sounds. Both songs ultimately begin the breakup story of their respective albums by showing how Olivia has chosen to deal with the aftermath of the relationship. Traitor sets up the tone of Sour as sad and mourning the loss of this relationship, and the rest of the song really feels out the anger and betrayal of this breakup. How she once held this relationship so dear, but now it's come to an end, and she struggles seeing her ex move on so quickly to the next person. And that feeling really underlies the entire album. So many songs in this album are just, how could you have moved on so quickly? Was I not good enough for you? This is another really interesting thing about Sour, which is that pretty much every breakup song in Sour is not just about the ex that she's mourning. It's also about some other girl that Olivia compares herself to, and it just creates a layer of cohesion in this album that's so brilliant because it really ties the whole story together about insecurity and comparison and being a teenager. Meanwhile, in Guts, instead of lamenting and feeling bad about her ex, Olivia instead decides to get drunk and hook up with her ex. This is a total pivot from Sour, which I think really emphasizes the main themes of Guts set up earlier, being a young adult, maturing, and ultimately perfection as this all-American girl people want Olivia to be. This is obviously much more raunchy than anything we got on Sour. It's playing up humor, it's playing up immaturity to show us that Olivia is not perfect. She does dumb things, she gets drunk, she lies to her friends. She's not the all-American icon that people want her to be. So again, as you can see, both these songs are about breakups, they're about dealing with exes, but they ultimately emphasize the respective themes of their album. Bad Idea Right is also a lot more grungy and energetic and loud, which I think emphasizes another transition from Sour to Guts, where Sour is a lot more ballady, it's a lot more mellow and acoustic, but Guts is not afraid to play up that energy, that distortion, the grunge of it all. Now when it comes to my personal pick, I think I do have to go with Traitor on this one. As you know, I'm an acapella geek. I love the harmonies at the start, I love the vocals in the bridge. It's just so powerful. I do love me a good power ballad, and this is definitely that. I will say Bad Idea Right grew on me a ton since first listen. I personally see it as a much better version of Get Him Back, which we'll talk more about when we get there. But this kind of humorous, grungy, I hate my ex, but I'm also kind of down bad for him energy, I think it works a lot better on this song because it's so upbeat and it really plays into that energy. When you see the full ranking, you'll see what I mean. But anyways, I do like Traitor a good bit more. Traitor is just so good. For track 3, we have Driver's License versus Vampire, and I think if the format of this video didn't make sense yet, it probably makes sense now. Not only are these two songs the lead singles on their respective albums, but they also have pretty much the exact same structure. We have the first verse, which is more mellow, piano-based, and introduces the story.
Got my driver's license last week. Hate to give the satisfaction asking how you're doing now.
Then we have the choruses, which both utilize these kind of ascending melodies that slowly build and build until the final gut punch moment.
I know we weren't perfect, but I've never felt this way. Real big mistakes, but you make the worst one look fine.
Then after the first chorus, the drum kicks in into the second verse.
And all my friends are tired. Every girl I ever talked to told me you were bad news.
And then the second chorus, and then this big bridge, which is like the climax essentially of each song, into the final chorus, which just drives everything home.
Red lights, stop signs.
I don't know if that made any sense, but just listen to both songs back to back and you'll see what I mean. This is the style Olivia established for herself when Driver's License became her first big hit, so I think it makes total sense she pretty much repeated that exact same style to kick off the Guts era. Really, the difference in these two songs is in the lyrics and the message. Both songs are dramatic and lament the end of a relationship, but Driver's License is once again more focused on Olivia's inability to understand how this relationship came to an end and why she is so unable to move on when she sees her ex moving on so easily. Meanwhile, Vampire is more focused on the idea of being taken advantage of, being used and manipulated, which ties better into the themes of Guts on growing into a young adult and trying to be perfect in the public eye, but still always feeling like you're falling short. This also is where I think the line about forgiveness from All American Bitch begins to be applied. This song starts the running idea of wanting to forgive but not being able to, which we'll get more of in Logical and ultimately The Grudge. Personally, again, both these songs are tremendous power ballads. In my opinion, this is Olivia at her best. But I do think I slightly prefer Vampire because of how the energy in the bridge carries through the final chorus all the way to the end. For track 4, we have One Step Forward, Three Steps Back versus Lacey. And at this point, I feel like the overall themes and sounds of each album are pretty well established, and the rest of the album begins to really just run with those themes in their own ways. With these tracks, what you might notice is that both of them very distinctly pull back the high energy we got in track 3, and are largely more mellow and acoustic. I would characterize both to be songs about confusion in their own ways. One Step Forward is all about knowing a relationship isn't working, but still trying anyways to make it work because you're young. This is all you have. Romance is so glamorized when you're a teenager that you think when you have it in your hands, you need to hold on to it even though you know it's not working, even when you know it's a hopeless cause. Lacey is also about confusion, but about someone you're so jealous of that you almost feel like you're in love with that person. Regarding my personal pick, I think Lacey takes the crown again. The acapella geek in me just comes out in that final outro of the song. It's just so good. All those layered vocals. Not to say One Step Forward, Three Steps Back isn't great. It's also very well done lyrically, and the New Year's Day interpolation is gorgeous, of course. I mean, Olivia just doesn't make bad music. Now I'm going to talk about track 5 and 6 together. On Sour, we have Deja Vu and Good For You, and on Guts, we have Ballad of a Homeschooled Girl and Making the Bed. Each pairing is quite distinct, but with everything set up so far, they make perfect sense within the stories of their albums and, again, just continuing to further the themes at hand. Deja Vu and Good For You are both about obsessing over your ex and continuing to wallow in the breakup, now from the vantage point of seeing your ex with a new person, doing all the things you used to do and just not being able to get over them. Again, really driving in that idea. Ballad of a Homeschool Girl and Making the Bed actually both diverge away from the breakup story that we got earlier in Guts and go back to the original themes of imperfection and young adulthood. I think this is honestly why I've seen a lot of people say they think Guts is a bit more evolved and better, at least songwriting wise, than Sour, because while Sour really just wallows in the breakup story and dives into all these different forms of sadness and anger and regret, Guts kind of jumps between a lot of different things about Olivia's own self-discovery that make it feel a little more mature, which is kind of the point of the album. It's about maturing, it's about growing up and being a young adult. And personally, I think the fact that Sour really drives in the breakup is not a bad thing at all. It's really cohesive in that regard, and the songs are all great, so like nothing to complain about. But yeah, these songs on Guts are also really doing the thing. Ballad of a Homeschooled Girl is all about being socially awkward, and Making the Bed is all about Olivia's anxiety around her fame and her new status, especially after the enormous unprecedented success of Sour. So both of these are really about anxiety, which again goes hand in hand with All all-American bitch, showing Olivia as this person who can hold in her emotions. She's fine, she can handle it all, and these songs are showing us that she's not. She's crumbling under these expectations. It's not that easy being her, and it's really beautifully told. Regarding my picks, starting with Deja Vu and Ballad of a Homeschooled Girl, not trying to spoil things later on the list, but I really, 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 really like Deja Vu. This song is incredible. The production, the glitter gel pen, everything about it is just so good. Ballad of a Homeschooled Girl is also great. Also, Every Guy I Like Is Gay. Not relatable content right there. Then we have Good For You versus Making the Bed, which are both great. I think Good For You is the only Olivia Rodrigo song to me that has kind of suffered from overplay. I mean, all her hits are super, super popular, but Good For You feels like the one that's just been played all the time, and it's still really good. But Making the Bed has this quality to it that is really heartfelt, it's very vulnerable, it's very raw, and I do kind of love that. So Making the Bed takes the crown there. Moving on to track 7, we have Enough For You versus Logical, and I think this is where the pairings again really start to click. When I first heard Logical, I immediately thought of it as Enough For You 2.0, and lo and behold, they're the same track number. Like, what am I telling you guys? Anyways, the reason I see these tracks as parallels of each other is, first, structurally and sonically, they're like the exact same, but also they're both about not being able to live up to the expectations of a romantic partner, and each song shows that in a way that fits the story of the respective album, even though they're pretty much about the exact same thing. Enough For You is once again focused on comparing to other girls and being a teenager, whereas Logical is more focused on the manipulation we saw in Vampire, while including some more frankly fucked up shit, in line with the theme of growing up and adulthood more present in Guts. Not much else to say about these songs because I think the rest of the parallels are pretty straightforward, and these songs honestly kind of feel like the climaxes of their respective albums. They feel like a peak in energy. It feels kind of like the main power ballad of the album that really releases all this anger and frustration embedded throughout the previous songs. And for that reason, both of these songs are very high for me on their respective albums because these tracks are just so powerful. Regarding which I like more, Logical takes the crown here, probably solely due to the fact that I just prefer piano ever so slightly over guitar. But again, these are both amazing songs. I find myself saying that over and over again. Okay, so this is where things get tricky. I could just keep going track by track, but I don't think that is quite fitting to all the parallels I want to point out in the rest of these albums. And Guts does have one more track than Sour, so I'd have to do some weird moving around at some point anyways. The next obvious pairing to me is Happier and The Grudge, which I'll talk about why soon. So I made the executive decision to skip Get Him Back and Love Is Embarrassing in the track by track and just talk about those songs as is, which I will do right now. Get Him Back is fine. It's weird because this is the song that she made a single and a ton of people latched onto, and like she made a big deal on Guts, but I always considered this the weakest on Guts, and to me this is the only skip in her whole discography, which that might be controversial, but again, I cannot stress how impressive that is, that among 2 entire albums there's only one song I don't like. But yeah, this song just kind of drags to me. I don't really like the lyrics. The double entendre is clever and the chorus can be a lot of fun, but it's not enough to save the song. It's really those verses that just take me out of it. And when I'm listening to Guts, I'd rather just move on to Love Is Embarrassing, which is a banger. I fucking love this song so much. It's so high energy, so addicting to listen to. It's just a hell of a joyride. Regarding the analysis side of things, I do see these both as just a way that Guts extends the runtime of its story more so than Sour. With the next few pairings, you'll see how these kind of wrap up the albums. Like I said, Enough For You and Logical kind of feel like the peak moment of the albums, and now we begin to wrap up the story. And so the only really difference is that Sour just chooses to get there quicker, while Guts sits a little bit with the immaturity and the fear of growing up, which I think is evident in these 2 songs in particular. These 2 do kind of feel like the more childish songs of the album, but I think it makes sense. Olivia sits in that for a little bit before really wrapping up the final themes. In a way, you could even think of these as an extension of the climax of Guts, keeping that intensity up before mellowing down with The Grudge. So let's continue on with the pairings. As I mentioned, the next natural pair I felt was fitting was Happier versus The Grudge. They both have a pretty similar narrative. Both songs show Olivia trying to move on from some sort of conflict in her life, but why she still struggles to move on. And again, they both do this in different ways that fit their respective albums while still having that overall similar quality and tone to them. Happier shows her struggling to move on because she can't imagine her ex moving on so easily while she still can't. Again, very similar to Good For You, Deja Vu, literally every other song on Sour. This is just a continuation of that story, but a little mellower and starting to move toward a sense of finality and putting this to rest. The Grudge similarly shows Olivia struggling to move on from the central conflict of the album because of how hurt and manipulated she felt. And this is where All American Bitch comes back in, because while she wants to be that perfect girl who forgives and forgets, it's so much easier said than done. Also, the overall format and melody of this song is very reminiscent of Vampire and Driver's License to me, but again, a bit more mellow, signaling to the listener that we're nearing the end of the story and we're starting to put this to rest.
I know we weren't perfect, but I've never felt this way. I try to be tough, but I wanna scream. How could anybody do the things you did so easily?
For my pick between the two, frankly, I don't feel too strongly about either of these songs. They're solid, but not really her best in my opinion. I think I'd choose The Grudge mainly for the bridge. That part is really powerful and has some great lyrics to it. The next pairing is Jealousy, Jealousy versus Pretty Isn't Pretty, which, I mean, this feels like a pretty obvious lineup right here. This is largely why I moved things around a little bit. These songs are obviously very similar thematically, the titles are very similar, and they both serve the same purpose in their albums, harkening back to the themes of insecurity and, well, jealousy that are present in both albums, and bringing that back kind of right before the end of the album. However, again, they are still in line with their respective albums. Jealousy, Jealousy approaches this more from the perspective of Olivia comparing herself to other teenagers she sees on social media, whereas Pretty Isn't Pretty approaches this from the perspective of having to be a perfect young adult, but always falling short. I've made this distinction a million times now throughout this video, but that's really what makes Guts and Sour so similar yet so different. Guts is literally just Sour, but slightly more evolved in themes, because, well, Olivia is growing up, and so is her music, and that's very clearly shown throughout these albums. Now, which of these teenage envy songs do I prefer? Jealousy, Jealousy. Honestly, by quite a bit. This song is so damn catchy and that bridge goes hard, but Pretty Isn't Pretty is a great time as well. Now, if you're keeping up properly, you probably are thinking that I messed up since we've reached the end of Guts, but the next track on Sour isn't the final track yet. Well, yes, but to me, Favorite Crime is the song that really completes the story of Sour, and so it honestly feels like a closer that we can pair up with Teenage Dream and have this be kind of our final battle here. Hope You're Okay has always felt like a deluxe track to me, honestly. That's kind of slapped onto the end of Sour as a cute little moment honoring Olivia's friends and all, so I appreciate it in that regard. I'm not saying it's a bad song by any means, I really like it, but for the sake of closing out the main stories and themes I've been talking about for the last however many minutes, I think Favorite Crime and Teenage Dream are more fitting in that regard. Favorite Crime is an interesting end to the story of Sour, because as I said earlier, every breakup song on Sour always references some other girl who Olivia is jealous of or that she sees her ex with now, except Favorite Crime. This is the only breakup song entirely focused on the relationship itself, and thus it allows Olivia to really dissect this relationship for what it was. A moment of warm sun, so to say. Something sinister and tragic, but also fun, and something she'll always hold dear. It's a beautiful way to round out the story because ultimately, Sour is an album all about teenage envy and insecurity and all that, but she closes out with this track and Hope You're Okay, which kind of ditch all that and just focus on Olivia's heart and her feelings. And like I said, Hope You're Okay is kind of like a deluxe track, but ultimately it does a similar thing, in that it maintains that detour away from the insecurity through line of the album and just lets Olivia take a moment to explore her own feelings and her fears and her friendships. It's vulnerable just like Favorite Crime and has a beautiful message to it, even if it's kind of detached from the main story. Teenage Dream, on the other hand, closes out Guts a little bit differently. It's very explicitly about Olivia's fears around growing up, both in her own life and in the music industry, and how she feels immense pressure on her shoulders to be great and do great things and be this ideal teenage dream girl for other young people, but she worries about letting everyone down if she can't meet their standards. And she brings back the loud, heavy sound at the end of the track, unlike Sour, where Favorite Crime and Hope You're Okay are both very mellow tracks, very acoustic, very ballady. Teenage Dream as a standalone isn't really that much of a standout to me, but it is still a brilliant closer to Guts. With that said, I do prefer Favorite Crime by a lot. Favorite Crime is easily one of the best on Sour. It's just such a gorgeous song. Well, that closes out the main albums. I guess I do need to talk about the Guts Deluxe tracks now, just as is, since I don't have anything on Sour left to cover. And yeah, they're pretty good. They each continue the same themes of Guts in their own ways, and I can honestly understand why these ended up being deluxe tracks rather than being on the main album, which already feels very tight-knit. I like all these songs a lot though. They're catchy, they're fun. Olivia Rodrigo makes good music. Are we surprised? You'll see where they all rank up. I just don't have much specific stuff to say about them, so stay tuned for the ranking. And speaking of, that's really all the commentary I had for these albums and songs. So without further ado, let's get into the ranking.
I really hope you'll find love.
Again, since I said all I wanted to say and gave my opinions and thoughts on all the songs already, I'm just gonna throw my full ranking at you, and you can yell at me in the comments if you'd like, but there will be no additional justifications and stuff as I usually do. Again, I've said all I wanted to say, so these songs just end up where they end up. What I will do though is I will kind of talk about the tiers as I go. I didn't really do like formal tiers with titles in this one like I usually do with my rankings, but I will interrupt to signal when we've shifted up a level in a way. Now, as you know, I always start at the bottom with the skip tier, but as I said before, there is genuinely only one song out of all of these that I consider a skip, so to say, or just not my cup of tea. And that song is... Okay, so now that that's out of the way, we can move on to the next set of songs, which are songs I like. I'm not gonna have like too many tiers with this because I don't really see a point. There's not that many songs anyways. So in my like typical 6-tier format, you can consider this a combination of both tiers 5 and 4. Songs I like and songs I really like. So we're not at like my favorites yet, but these songs are all great in their own regard. You'll also see a lot more songs from Guts here, but that's literally just because Guts has more songs. It's not because I like Sour like significantly more or anything.
And I'm sorry that I couldn't always be your teenage dream. I hope you're happy, but don't be happier. Pretty isn't pretty enough. What do you do? It takes strength to forgive, but I'm not quite sure I'm there yet. You're just a stranger I know everything about. It's social suicide. I hope that you're okay. I trust the letters. I get down with crooked men, but I am the girl I've always been. Ego crush is so severe. God, it's brutal out here. Me now, I'm coming like a storm into your town. Send me home crying. It's 1 step forward and 3 steps back. Fuck it, it's fine. Yes, I know that he's my ex, but can't 2 people reconnect? I got issues, I can't help it, baby. I'm so obsessed with your ex.
Now we move on to my favorites. This is Olivia at her best. These songs are getting the thing done. They're really, really good.
So scared of my guitar cause it cuts right. Jealousy, yeah. All your friends are so cool, you go out every night. And he laughs at all my jokes, and he says I'm so American. Lacy, oh Lacy, skin like puff pastry. Guess you didn't mean what you wrote in that song about me, but it's me. Cause all I ever wanted was to be enough for you. Bleed me dry like a goddamn vampire.
And finally, we've reached the top 5, so I just wanted to interrupt and say these 5 are kind of my starter pack for Olivia. This is my like tier number 1, as you can imagine with my other rankings. This is the best of the best to me. This is Olivia at her finest. I love, love, love these 5 songs so, so much.
Now it don't need to think God love fucking everything. Oh, love is never logical. All the things I did just so I could call you mine. I'm a perfect all-American bitch. Deja vu.
And yeah, that's the ranking, and that's the whole video. Really what I wanted to show in this video is just that Sour and Guts are two absolutely incredible albums, and you can really tell that the lyricism, the sound, the placement of tracks, everything about these two albums and eras was just so well thought out. She is really doing the thing right now. She is bringing something new to pop music, and I am so excited to see where she goes next because she has so much potential with this sound, with this style she's created, with this persona. Feel free to let me know what you thought of my analyses and of my ranking overall in the comments. Like I said before, I'm still trying to figure out where I want to go with my next few videos, you know, what other rankings I might try to do. I have some ideas in the back burner. We might start working on those. You'll see as they come. But yeah, leave a like and subscribe if you enjoyed this. I really do appreciate it. And have a great day or night. I don't know, whenever you're watching this. Okay, bye!